I was 19 years old when I found myself homeless. For a while, I was living with my sister, and then a couple of friends, but one night, I really had no place to go.
My family had to desert our culture and roots in the middle of the war to escape being murdered, sent to prison, or to starve, along with all the people of my country.
Honestly, I feel so much older. When I was deployed, I had to make life or death decisions. I feel so different from all the other students here, and I wonder if this college thing's for me.
While higher ed is described as an ivory tower removed from the concerns of ordinary existence, the reality is that all campus members bring the full range of lived experiences to academic spaces. Violence is commonplace, and yet educators, particularly in higher education, have been conditioned to perceive trauma as absent from the learning process, thus constructing a failure of recognition that undermines teaching and learning. Research demonstrates that trauma, adversity, and violence are in our classrooms and communities, affecting academics, relationships, and overall well-being. As Jenny Horstman observes, unless education at all levels acknowledges the violence, along with its impact on learning, many students will not only fail to learn, but experience the educational setting as a silencing place or another site of violence, where they are diminished by institutional structures and shamed by their failure to learn. Bessel van der Kolk essentially defines trauma as an overwhelming of a person's ability to manage, and how the body's response to fear and danger sets into motion some of the oldest and most primitive threat response systems that ultimately affect brain development, self-regulation, and the capacity to stay focused and in tune with others. It's common. 66 to 85% of youth report lifetime traumatic event exposure by the time they reach college, and 94% of community college students report at least one traumatic event before starting. Childhood adversities such as abuse and neglect have lifelong effects, including on educational attainment. And systems of power, including poverty and racism, also negatively affect academic progress. Sia Verschalden adopts the term cognitive bandwidth to frame the ways that daily experiences and the context in which they take place affect learning, and believes that college can help build back cognitive bandwidth. While trauma-informed educational practices have existed in K-12 settings for over 20 years, awareness of trauma represents a relatively new movement in higher education. Trauma-informed is not a medical model intervention, but a hybrid of public health and higher ed pedagogies and practices. A paradigm shift in trauma-informed warrants asking the right question, not what's wrong with you, but rather what has happened or is happening to you. This shift recognizes dynamics that impact academic resilience and creates opportunities for change. For example, the concept of homework is predicated on home. For a student experiencing homelessness, time outside class first demands finding shelter, leaving less time and concentration for homework. Mindful of the significant proportions of students facing housing insecurity, faculty are not being asked to be social workers, but to consider flexible due dates or a basic needs section of the syllabus that links to relevant resources. And this is the core of the movement beginning to take hold. Trauma-informed means seeing that trauma, adversity, and violence already exist as consequential forces in the lives of students, as well as in the culture of college and university. Inadequate recognition of this undermines educational reform because it fails to see fundamental factors that overwhelm academic persistence, ultimately rendering trauma a barrier to college access and retention. Compassionate practices and academic rigor can coexist. Incorporating awareness of trauma and adversity reveals strategies that contribute to academic resilience, vital to authentic equity and inclusion in higher education.